Hey everyone, I just got back from a Viking River cruise in Europe and there were daffodils all over the place. They were so pretty. So I am going to be making a daffodil in this video, and if you want to learn how to cut the glass for a daffodil, follow along. For this project I'm going to be making some daffodils, and I'm wanting to shape the glass like the petals here. And I'm using this vase. It's just an ordinary vase that I picked up at a garage sale, and I'm using my SEABELL nippers. They have a teal rubber ring that holds onto the glass until you drop it, instead of letting glass fly out the end. But don't let it fool you. You still need to wear safety glasses because little shards can fly out, especially when nipping small pieces of glass. Very easy on your hands compared to other nippers. The nip is much more controlled, and like I said, the glass does not fly out like it would with the other nippers. So I just took the ring off the top, and then I'm starting to nip the glass to make the petals. And I want a kind of a fat piece of glass, maybe even a little bit fatter than that, but it will come off shaped like that. So I'm going to kind of start slow so you can see how I nip it. And all I'm doing is going around the fatter part of it and nipping around to make it rounded. And again, if you already know how to do this, just fast forward through it. But for those of you who don't, keep watching. It's pretty much the shape we want. Fatter at one end and skin at the other end, and that point really shouldn't be there. The point I need to take off and round it just a tiny bit at the bottom, but we still want it thinner at the bottom. So here I am nipping another piece of glass, and this one I try to make a little fatter because those petals are really quite a bit fatter. And then I'm rounding off the fatter end again, just nipping around it, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Once you put the spray paint on it and resin over it, it looks nice. And there you go, there's another petal, and that one's a little bit fatter than the other one. And the very pointy end, I'm just rounding it a tiny bit because it really shouldn't be super pointy, as you saw with the flowers in that little, on that piece of paper that I showed you. So there you go. So it's actually rounded at both ends. You can control the width of your glass. So if you nip with the nippers straight, you'll get a thinner piece of glass, the more parallel to the top. And if you curve it down like that, like at an angle, you'll get a fatter piece of glass like that. So it's all in the way that you angle the nippers. Okay, last one that I'm doing slow. So these petals, like I said, are kind of fat, short petals. The one end is rounded and fatter, and the other end is narrower and not really, you don't want the point on it. I rounded the end down at the thinner end. And just take your time. These SEABELL nippers are real easy to work with, I think. And here's a couple of them. Just keep on nipping the flowers or the petals, and I'm going to make 2 flowers and 1 bud. And one of the flowers is going to be a little bit smaller than the other. And in a minute I'll show you 6 of them cut up, because you need 6 petals for each flower. And then there you go. There's 6 of them. And then I go ahead and I cut up another 6. But that's pretty much how you want them to look. And that's for the bottom part of the daffodil. Next, we're going to shape the trumpet part of the daffodil, this part right here. So for this part, we need smaller pieces of glass and a little bit narrower. So here's a piece that I had, I guess, nipped off before, and that's about the shape that you want it. And you just need to round it at the top, just like I did the regular petals, but this is for the trumpet shape that sits on top of the petals. And I'm just rounding the top, and I'm leaving the bottom part pointed on all of these, but I do come back later and nip it off flat at the very bottom. It stands up better. So I do a whole bunch just like this. And this I'm going to kind of fast forward to because this is similar to how I nipped the others. They're just thinner petals that I'm using. So here it is in fast forward. I'm just cutting up a whole bunch. I think I need 6 to 8 of them per flower, and I'm going to be doing 2 flowers, one a little larger than the other. And then here's a whole bunch of them cut up. And like I said at the very end, I do end up nipping off the pointy ends on them so that they're all about the same length. But this is pretty much the shape I need, and I'm just anticipating 6 to 8 of them per flower. Initially, I sprayed them all with the TAMIYA translucent yellow spray paint. The TAMIYA does not run and it does not fade under resin. Decide I want the trumpet portion of it to be a different color, so what I end up doing is taking the smaller pieces that are going to be the trumpet and spraying it with the metallic orange, and this is an opaque spray paint. If you spray it light enough, it can be translucent, but it does end up opaque in this. So the smaller petals I do in the metallic orange, and I decide to make the larger petals a little bit darker, and I end up using the TAMIYA yellow for a second coat. So I used the translucent yellow for the first coat, and the second coat I ended up using the opaque yellow. I just wanted them a little bit darker. All of these I just end up spraying one side. You don't need to spray both sides. Comes the tedious part, putting the flowers together. And like I told you, I cut the pointed end off of all of these. The trumpet part, the orange part. And like I said, this is all trial and error. I have never put a daffodil together before, but I've been wanting to do it for a while now, so here goes. And I do have this sped up. So here I'm just messing around with them, trying to figure out how I'm going to get them to balance on each other. And honestly, the only way you could do this is with UV resin because it just is just too hard not to. And actually I'm using Craftor UV resin. I've never used it before. It works really well. There really isn't much of a smell to it. I started it without using a respirator, and then I realized I didn't have a respirator on, so I went and grabbed it. But before that, you really couldn't smell it. So, and this is my new WITS resin lamp, which is really nice too. I love this because it balances so nice. You charge it, and then you can use it without the without it being plugged in. So it's much easier to use. And here you can see I'm still messing with this flower, trying to figure out how I'm going to hold it together. And that's what I end up doing, is just using the UV resin and piece by piece putting it together. And I do end up messing up. But luckily I had done a couple extra of these petals in case the paint did come off. If you have UV resin on it and it's firmed up, if it's cured up and you pull it apart, you can pull the paint off. And that's what I did with that one petal, but luckily I had another one. And didn't that turn out nice? The top part of the flower you can see down on the pink mat, and unfortunately I did it off camera, but I'm going to do a second one. Doesn't that look pretty? I think that turned out real cute. But doesn't that look perfect? See how it gets narrower at the bottom? That one turned out really good. It's got some resin along the edges that I have to get off. Okay, so here's the second one. So hopefully you're going to be able to see this. Little UV resin down, and then I hold the petal standing upright for about 30 seconds, and then it stands up on its own. And then that's how I continue to do it all. Actually, these are tipped down too much. I think I don't know if I end up pulling it apart and doing it again. But what I do is I just go all the way around, one drop at a time, put another petal on it, and hold it up for about 30 seconds till it stands up on its own. And I go all the way around a complete circle to make the trumpet portion of the daffodil. And because they ended up with some resin around the bottom of the outside that I wanted to get off, I used this Dremel tool and just sand it all the way around. And when you're sanding resin, you need to wear a respirator. You don't want to breathe any of that in. And then I cleaned the petals with isopropyl alcohol after I was done. Very carefully. I didn't want to knock any of the paint off of it. That's one of them all the way done. I think that turned out pretty cute. And it all stands up on its own. I just have to put the smaller flower together next. Next, I took a 4x12 canvas that I had painted with Artist Loft iridescent medium, and I had also taken painter's tape and put it around the perimeter of the back to catch resin drips, and I'm putting it up on top of 3 cups so that it will not adhere to the protective paper underneath. Even if it's a silicone mat, the resin would pool around the mat and it would be difficult. You would have to actually cut it off. And then I take these stems that I'm going to be using for the flowers. This is actually stained glass that I had purchased at Hobby Lobby, and cut strips out and put it in my 45-pound MJR tumbler and tumbled. And yes, some of them do break, some of them don't. You can piece them together. But I actually had good results from this, and a lot of them stayed quite long. Stained glass really isn't that difficult to cut. There are tons of YouTube channels that will teach you how to do it for free. The resin I'm using for this project is Craftor resin. It's actually a tabletop epoxy resin. This is different from the other Craftor that I usually use and I always talk about. This is specifically to be used as a coating resin for on canvas or wood. So after I mixed up my resin, I actually went ahead and poured it on the canvas first, and then just used my gloved hand to spread it out along the sides and over the edges, just to make sure I had enough on, and I'm going to put the glass on top of it. Then I just start assembling the flowers and the stems, and you can see that one flower came apart. There's 3 and 3, but I wanted it spread out a little wider so I could fit the trumpet part in there a little bit better. So again, these are the stems that stained glass stems that I cut up, and I try to balance this. So the bud that I made, the way I made that is by taking a green piece of glass. This is a baggie full of glass that I usually use for leaves, and put it on top of one of the petals, the trumpet petals. And because I don't want it translucent, I want this leaf opaque because it's going to be sitting on top of the yellow. I go ahead and I use the WITS resin acrylic markers and let that dry, and that's what I use to make the bud. But I tried doing this at first, and every time I move it, it kind of falls off. So I end up taking it off and putting it back on at the very end. I get all the stems and the leaves situated. The daffodils have these long, thin leaves that grow up beside them. Then I take some green glass. This is actually Dollar Tree glass that I've colored a little bit darker with the Dr. Martens Bombay India ink, the color grass green. And then the purple and blue glass there is Ashland decorative filler that I have colored with the TAMIYA spray paints. And I drizzle a little more resin over everything that I just put on there. And here I'm just messing with it, trying to see if I want some flowers at the bottom or what I want to do. And I end up taking all the flowers off at the end and putting a grasshopper on. And you'll see it at the very end of the video. This particular resin, the Craftor tabletop epoxy 1:1 ratio resin, has a 30 to 35 minute work time. It dries in 8 hours. Final cure is 24 hours. Curing method, room temperature, so 70 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And real easy to work with, has few bubbles. Whatever bubbles there were, I was able to get them out with the torch. It really covered the canvas really nice. I was really pleased with it. There were no fish eyes at all. Hey everyone, so after I turned the camera off, I decided it needed some more buds down here. I thought it was too plain, and then after I looked back, I thought, oh gosh, it probably really didn't need them. So anyway, I added 3 more buds, and I did that with the UV resin. That was after the other resin had hardened up. So the resin that I used for this project is Bond Craftor, and I've used Bond Craftor before, but this is the tabletop epoxy. So this is more of a coating epoxy to use on canvas. So this, I mean, you could use it in molds and you can use it on glass, but this cover gives better coverage as far as the sides. It doesn't leave any fish eyes or anything. And also the other thing that they have is the UV resin, and that's what I use to put the flowers together. And they're not paying me to say any of that, but you know, I'm always on a mission to find not UV resin, but epoxy resin that doesn't cause fish eyes, has good coverage, and isn't super expensive like some of the other resins I've mentioned before, because some of them are twice the price of this. So you might want to check that out for your canvases. So anyway, yeah, I think it turned out pretty. The only thing I would do different next time is I would do this with the translucents. I think it would look much prettier with the translucent. I started spraying it all with translucent, but then I ended up doing changing the color of the daisy or the daffodils. I was in Europe for 2 weeks, a couple of weeks ago, and everything was in bloom. It was so pretty. We were in France and Germany, and there was little gardens all over the place and daffodils all over the place. And I've been wanting to do a daffodil, but after I kept on seeing them over and over again, I said, that's it, I got to do it. So that's why I ended up doing the daffodils. I don't know if daffodils, I know tulips are bulbs, but I'm not sure. Are daffodils bulbs? I guess I should have looked that up. Oh, and then I put the little grasshopper at the bottom too. I don't know, it kind of blends in there. I don't know if you can see him. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps the channel. If you enjoyed the channel, go ahead and subscribe. And if you hit the bell, it will notify you every time I put out a new video. I do try to put out a new video every week. We have the Facebook page going. A lot of help over there. If you have any questions about glass and resin art, great way to display your art. I love to see it. I hope you come join us over there, and I hope you all have a great day. Thanks for watching.